Beth drugged me into the Circles organization. I was screaming, hollering, shouting, kicking. No, I won't go, I won't go. I don't need another volunteer issue on my plate. It's too full and running over now. I won't get involved. But Beth told me I was going to go, so guess what? I went. Now I'm graciously and gratefully an employee of Circles. I have a real income, Charlie.
That's a good thing.
Or an actual income. An actual income. I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to come back and explain why. I'm not Joan of Arc, and don't want to be. Was not sent here on this earth to save everyone. The Lord did that for us many, many, many years ago, so I don't have to do that. But I'm also a die-hard, arrogant, bullheaded, activist radical. And so in order to get where I've gotten to, I went 3 years with no income. I survived legally, morally, and ethically. But I only survived. But it was the only way to get us to a point in society to be able to do what we're about to go do. So, stop there, start back over, and I'll come back to that. Now, in respect of time, I'm going to jump around a little bit. So please, 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 if you have a question on anything I'm talking about, please interrupt me and let's narrow that down. Okay? I know that theoretically we would wait to the end and have questions, but I would like to request that you just jump in and ask me if you have a question. Okay? Cool? In 1999, I was married. I had 3 beautiful stepchildren. I lived in Carmel, in Northbrook, if anybody knows Carmel. I was very successful with my own marketing company, working with custom and semi-custom home builders. And of course, I was back when real estate was booming, obviously. I was a mortgage broker on the side. I did that for fun, and a little bit of a supplemental income. I worked with folks who were in dire straits. I worked only in subprime mortgages. I helped a lot of people. I became kind of a specialist in helping people not lose their home to foreclosure. So I was in that, which wasn't actually my real job. I was in that, and I collected $1,300 from a young couple to help them not have their house foreclosed on, and receipted them properly like I'm supposed to do. I put that money into what used to be Bank One years ago, up in Lafayette, which is where I'm from originally, and in an escrow account, which is what I was supposed to do. As a matter of fact, that money is still there today. And I'm scared to death to touch it. I'm not going to do that until I can afford an attorney to help me do that, because I'm scared to death to touch that money. Because over that $1,300 now, and again I say this just to make a point, and I say it in humbleness, when I had my marketing company I was making well over 6 figures, and again living in Carmel, and so $1,300 really was not, right now $1,300 to me is like $1 million, but back then it was like $1. So unfortunately, I was accused by that young couple of stealing that money. And so I got a knock on the door from a deputy sheriff who was doing an investigation on that, because they had complained to the prosecutor that I stole that money, so obviously there has to be an investigation. Back then I couldn't even spell law. I knew nothing about the law. Couldn't spell it. Fortunately though, at the time, my brother up in Lafayette is an excellent, and as far as I know, is still an excellent criminal attorney. So I went to my brother David, and I said, "What do I do?" I said, "David, it's right here, and I got receipts, and I've got it's in an escrow account." Where he said, "I'll tell you what, I'll walk you right through it." So I say that because it's important. But you have to understand something. What I did, I made the final decision to do what I did. And unfortunately, it was breaking the law. So I blame no one else but myself for the situation that I got myself into. I need you to know that. My brother, on the other hand, advised me to falsify some forms and hand them to the investigating officer, and he said, that'll clean everything up, it'll look as though none of this ever happened, and it'll all go away. I knew that wasn't right. I knew in my heart that wasn't right. But my brother is a very successful, very good criminal attorney on the defense side. So I followed what he did, and I handed those 2 forms to the investigating officer. 2 forms, my name, my signature on the bottom. The second I handed him those 2 forms, I broke the law. In Indiana, that's obstruction of justice, and it's a D felony. And there's not much negotiation of getting that back down to a misdemeanor, I now have learned. So 2 letters, 2 counts, 2 D felonies. I just committed. Right? Within a matter of seconds. So, on the other hand, sidebar, as the attorneys would call it, sidebar, I had no criminal history. No one, nothing. No juvenile, no anything. We were scared to break the law. You know, Mom would have just, forget the judges and the prosecutors, we would have had to face Mom. You know, and when we were, the years we were raised, you just didn't let that happen. So, I also learned the hard way, D felony carries a 3-year maximum sentence, okay? 2 counts, 3 years, 6 years, becomes 6. Now fortunately, because those letters were handed at the same time on the same case, in Indiana those would have to be run together. So even though it was 2 counts, it would only be a 3-year term. So what should have happened was, with no criminal history, I should have been convicted of those 2 counts because I did it. But because of no criminal history, because of no background, because of no anything with the law, I should have been convicted of that, sentenced to the 3 years, all suspended, be on probation for a year, and call it a day. Now, that's what should have happened. And all this legal stuff started in 2000, in the middle 2000. Started in the beginning, but you know how it gets long drawn out. So it actually happened in the middle of 2000. Well, again, I couldn't spell law, so we didn't know any better. My brother advised me to accept my first plea agreement that the prosecution offered. And that first offer was 18 years. And I didn't know any better. So under the advice of my brother, the really very intelligent criminal attorney, and he really is an intelligent criminal attorney, I signed that plea agreement. So instead of getting 3 years, suspend them all, year on probation and call it a day, I took 18 years under their advisement. I didn't know at that time that there was any such thing in Indiana called good time, because when you're sentenced to a felony conviction and you know you're going to go to prison, in Indiana, if you follow the rules and do what you're supposed to do, because that's what you're supposed to do, you only serve half of the time. So 18-year sentence becomes 9 years actual. But it's still 9 years. My biggest fear was that I was going to die in prison. And I really, really, really didn't want to do that. So I went. I was sentenced and they took me away. You know, it's just like TV. When the sentence comes down, when the gavel comes down, they put you in handcuffs and they take you off to the big house. Unfortunately, I did not survive. I died in prison. I'm just kidding about that part. I was seeing who was awake. Fortunately, I survived. Everyone in prison has a job, and the ones that were on the list that I had any hope that I could get when it was my time to start working was a law clerk in the law library. How ironic, huh? Now, of course, when you're sentenced, you go to the county jail, and you wait there until your time is to be transferred to an actual prison, right? So when I go back to this county jail, and it was in Hamilton County, everything happened in Noblesville, in Hamilton County. when I went back to the jail, I tried calling my brother. I called my brother, right? You have to call collect. Somebody has to accept, and it's about $4,000 billion per call. And so he's not taking my phone calls. I write him a letter, and you get a pencil and paper, one sheet at a time. Okay? So I'm writing him these letters, right? And I have to beg, borrow, and steal. I have to beg and borrow to get a stamp to send it out to him. Those little soups that you can get on commissary are a real commodity. They are like money. So you'll buy things for those. You can get the little soups. So anyway, it's part of this. So I'm writing him letters. He's not answering my letters. Whew, boy, I'm really getting concerned. So so one morning I get called for a visit out of the blue. I had no clue who was coming to see me. Now that was back in the day when we still had the glass and the two little stools and the little phone thing. It was great. But anyway, so I walk out and there's my brother. I'm saying, David, I'm jumping on the chair, picking up the phone. David, where you been? Where you been? He just looks gray. He's just gray and a real solemn look on his face. What's wrong? What's wrong? He said, look, Bob, I couldn't tell you this over the phone. I sure wasn't going to put it in writing in the letter. But the reason I have to come and tell you and face you and tell you that the reason that I did what I did and talked you into this long sentence was to kind of get rid of you for a little while because your wife and I have been having an affair for the last 6 months. Okay? I don't say that for you to feel sorry for me. I say that because it's part of the story. And as I look back, because at the time I said to him, why didn't you just kill me? And I hung up the phone and I pushed the button and I said, go take me back to my cell, this visit's over. Could have gotten in trouble for that, but was willing to do it. So I did. And they took me back to my cell. I'm going to shake a little bit when I tell that part. But,
Good, thank you.
all I could think of was that there was something that I must have done. I did not feel like a victim. I did not. But there must have been something that I either did or didn't do in my marriage to cause my wife to seek elsewhere. And so that was the start of, I didn't realize it then, but that was kind of the start of my journey of becoming an activist and saying, maybe some things in life have to be changed. So, I go to prison, I become a law clerk. Well, guess whose case I started looking up first? That would be mine. And I'm reading and studying. I'm reading and studying. Every minute that they would let me in there, I'm reading and studying. Now, I figured out my situation, and I looked up my situation. That's how I learned that it should have been 3 years, suspended all, year of probation, and call it a day. That's where I learned that. I also learned how to do appeals in Indiana. Indiana, not federal. Indiana appeals, and I learned how critical timing is when you do an appeal. I did 3 appeals in my term, in my time there. I won 2 of them and lost 1. Guess which one I lost? Mine. I did win for the other 2 guys, and they did go home. One went home 4.5 years before he was on paper to go home. So that was pretty cool. That made me feel kind of good. Anyway, so I'm reading and studying and reading and studying and reading and studying. I've studied Indiana law for about 8 years now on my own. I'm real confident that I could pass a bar. I can't, because you can't do that with a criminal record. But anyway, that's okay. That's okay. Because of what I do now for a living, it's very, very helpful. And so I can help people, and they also can't snow me. Because that does happen. I know this surprises you, but it does happen. So we can't let, it just doesn't, you just can't let that happen. So, here I am on this journey now. Now, I get to the prison, and I'm sitting in a little group. It was a Saturday morning early. Most everybody stays up late Friday nights watching movies because the curfew is much later, Fridays and Saturday nights. And so everybody's up late, and so it's kind of quiet on Saturday mornings, and that's really cool, because it's hardly ever quiet in prison. So I'm sitting with a small group of people. The one guy is up early because in 2 or 3 more days, I can't remember which, but in 2 or 3 more days, he's going home. He's finished his sentence, and he's going home. Now, when society thinks of folks coming home from prison, we think of big and smart and really important and obvious things like where they're going to live and where they're going to work and do they have transportation and those things that we need to do and we are doing. But when you're in prison, here's what you think of. Where are you going to eat first? Because the food is sustainable but really not very good. And so where are you going to eat first? And so we're talking about all those things, and so we take our turns going around the table. It's like an AA meeting. So we take our turns going around the table and start talking about what you're going to do, what you're going to do, what you're going to do. I said, now understand that you go through the diagnostic center before you go to the prison, and they shave your head. That was devastating to me. People look at me like I'm from Mars, which I am, but that's a whole other story for another day. But that was the worst part to me at all. I'm very vain about my hair. Have been since I was this tall. It looks terrible this morning. I just was all worried walking in here with Beth. It doesn't look right today, and they're not going to like me. So anyway, it was awful. But what I said to the guys was, you know what? Let me tell you what's going on here, guys. When Bob Cole walks out of here, I'm getting my used car salesman hairdo back. I'm putting on a suit, and I'm going to walk down the street, and anybody ever going to know? And I said that for about 6 months. Nobody's going to know. I still had a few connections in Carmel. I still had a few people that knew it wasn't my character to break the law, and they were being with me. They were being kind to me, writing back and forth. Mail call when you're in prison is extremely cool, especially when your name's called. And I say that. Let me say that again. When you're in prison, mail call is extremely cool, especially when you get your name called. So if anybody, that's a little hint. If anybody knows anybody in prison and you have any writing back and forth, it is really cool. Okay? So anyway, I could have made my connections. Upper echelon were my friends in their businesses. They offered to talk to me when I got home. And I could have gone right up there and gotten a job, got my used car salesman hairdo back. Are there any used car salesmen in here? Where's Fritz when you need? So anyway, I'll put my suit on and walk down the street. And I really, really intended to do that. But the more I studied the law, the more I read case law, not to insult anybody's intelligence, please, but the case law are the actual cases. The law is the law, and then the case laws show me, or I can read my case, what actually happened in my situation. Or when Charlie was in, did they know you were in prison? So when Charlie was in prison, I could read about his case, right? Right? You know, Doc got his medical degree in San Quentin. Just kidding. So anyway, sorry, I was being goofy and lost my train of thought.
No, it's actually Alcatraz.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, you know, studying the law, and these case laws are just absolute. That's where I was. These case laws are just blowing my mind. I just can't. I'm really, honestly not believing what I'm reading. But these things are happening, and people in America are going to prison for a long, long time. Now, had they chosen to put me in prison, I understand that. I don't like it, but I understand it because I broke the law. I was one of the very few in there that was guilty. Nobody ever did it. Love you, buddy. So, or were you saying to me to wrap up? I'm just kidding. So anyway, I'm reading all this, and I understand if they had given me what they gave me. I understand that they convicted me. But they should have convicted me for what I did. Not for all these other... See, if you look me up, and you can, it's public record. If you look up Robert Cole, I was born in 1958. If you look under the Department of Correction thing on offender search, and you look me up, there's a long list. How many felonies do I have? I think it's 11. Anyway, whatever it is. I don't get so hung up on that near like I used to, because in America, it doesn't matter whether you have 1 felony or 120. It really doesn't matter. You're an ex-offender, you're an ex-con, you're a felon, whatever word each person puts on that. And that's okay with me. I mean, you know, what I said to myself was, I have an outdate. It's an unfair one, but I have an outdate. I get to go home. I was not just diagnosed with cancer. And that got me through a lot of what I was doing. And studying the law made me and helped me become an activist. And I thought, you know what? Successful businessman for a number of years. Now I'm on this side of the fence and understand what it's like to be an offender, soon to become an ex-offender. Understand the challenges that I'm about to face. Haven't faced them yet, but I understand. I'm at least getting my ducks in a row on what I'm about to face. So, lemonade out of lemons? What are you going to do? You quit? You stop? Do I feel sorry for myself? I can. And there are people that would go with me on that. Do I learn the system? Okay? See, most folks think that when somebody comes home from prison, that they automatically and completely become a manipulator. Right? Because it appears that way. All that guy wants is a handout. Why doesn't that guy just go get a job? There are plenty of apartment places where he can live. Can't he just ride the bus for a little while? He did what he did. Now a little bit, unfortunately, they're right. I can't blame society for saying that, because that's what we've taught each other to do. And that's what we've taught each other how to respond. That's how we've taught each other to act or feel or receive. And I understand that. Now I understand why society thinks that the guy coming home, the man or woman coming home from prison, becomes a manipulator automatically. I understand that, because a little bit, that's how we act. Surprise, surprise. I'm jumping. I rarely watch TV. When I do, it's usually a little bit of news. I work more than I should. As a matter of fact, before I met Beth and we became an actual item, after Beth and I met, we knew each other 2 years or something like that, and then we became an item. But before we became the item, people used to tease me and say that I worked 30 hours a day, 8 days a week. And I would live, eat, and breathe re-entry. That's all I ever did, day and night. Other than go to church, worked most Sundays because of scheduling. So, if you and I have an appointment for something, we can look at our calendars, and if it's an important issue, we're going to try to schedule that time sooner than later. So we try to get it at least soon, but soon is usually what? A week, 10 days? For all practical purposes, most people's calendar. Right? Anybody retired? Yours is a month out. Retired people scare me about retiring. Y'all are busier than I've ever been. So, but anyway, with re-entry, timing is critical, because if I put somebody off a week before I can sit down with them and find out what their issues are and try to do everything I can to help them, assist them, not do it for them, assist them. I didn't want people doing stuff for me. I wanted assistance. I wanted help. Teach me how to fish. Don't throw me the fish. Thank you for throwing me the fish, but please, please consider teaching me how to fish. I've got to be able to do this on my own. I'm not going to succeed, and I'm sure not going to become sustainable unless you teach me how to fish. So to sit down with somebody and to schedule them out a week until I can sit down and find out what their issues are, That means it's going to be another week before I can start on their issues, because I've got all these other people stacked up on the desk. Now it's 2 weeks. Now it's 2 weeks before we can get a job established and somebody actually starting to work. Then it's another 2 weeks before they get a paycheck. How many weeks am I up to? I'm almost at 8, am I not? So what's that person going to do for the 2 months? Can I live with you? Can I stay in your guest room? I just got home from prison. I don't even know your name. You see what I mean? How could you take that chance? I mean, really, let's be realistic about this. How could you take that chance? So, what do? What's the ex-offender going to do? Come on, everybody knows the answer to this.
Go to their family.
Say it again.
Go to their family.
If they can.
They'll commit a crime.
Bingo.
Exactly.
Because guess what? Now stop and think about this. You're boxed into a corner. You have no place to live. You have no transportation. You have absolutely no money. It all just went away. Okay? It all just went away. And your previous crime was drug dealing. Now, as wrong as that is, and I just spent time in prison for that, so I really know how wrong that is. But if I could just do one deal, if I could just do one, just to get me over the hump, because I know that guy named Bob Cole is going to try to do whatever he can do to help me, but it's going to take forever to get it done. And there's this doctor at IU, whatever it's called, that's backing him, and then they've got this big church called Second that thinks this is all really cool, and maybe we ought to do something, and what are we going to do, and all those kind of neat things. But if I can just get myself over that hump, so all I'm going to do is one deal. And so they do it. What would you do? Have you ever looked down on a mom, a single mom who has no money? She's about to be evicted from her little tiny apartment that not everybody fits in, and that kind of thing. Okay? Would you walk into Kroger and chance putting a thing of hamburger in your purse if your children were hungry?
Sure.
Now, why would I do that? There's all these food pantries. I would challenge you to go to a food pantry once. Put on the oldest, ugliest clothes you've got. Do not drive your car there. Okay? Take the bus and go to a food pantry. I challenge you. I've done it. I was without a car for 1.5 years. I rode the bus. I did everything I did on a local bus. And that was very, very challenging. But it was affordable. If I'd have been able to afford the car, I couldn't afford the gas to put in it. So I did what I had to do because that's what I had to do. I chose to do mine. Chose. Okay? Folks, it's called survival. Doesn't make it right. In fact, most of the time it's wrong. We've done things now and turned them around. So guess what? It's really quite simple. Everybody needs educated. Well, you know what? Let's sit these ex-offenders down in a class, and let's teach them life skills, and let's teach them how to get a job, and let's teach them how to write out a resume, and let's teach them how to, we'll do some mock interviews, we'll have clothing banks to where, we can make sure that they look nice for the interview. We can make sure that they have a haircut that looks presentable to the potential employer, that type of thing. And please don't misunderstand me. 2 points about that. One, it's necessary for some people. See, for me to have gone through the system like I should have gone through the system and really gotten a job and not gone through those 3 years like I went through, I could have played the game. Guess what I would have become? A manipulator. I already know how to do all that. Suit? Anybody like my suit? Does it look all right? Guess how much I paid for this? It was brand new when I got it. tags were still on it. I wear this suit to speeches like this or visitation like this on purpose. Guess where I got this suit? Still have the tags on it. Had a gray one just like it. It's a cricketer, never heard of it. Back in the day, I would have never worn a cricketer. You know? What's yours called? Put him on the spot. So, sorry Doc, you get me back for that later. $10.95 at Goodwill. Okay? The gray one was new, it looked new, and the pants hadn't even cuffed yet, so I assumed it was new too. So I bought 2 suits for $10.95 a piece, both new. Oh, I have bought suits before at Goodwill for $10.95, and then I spent $15 on it at the dry cleaner to get it clean. Okay? See, I don't tell you that to brag or anything like that. But back when I lived in Carmel, I would have never done that. I just wouldn't have done that. You know? Just wouldn't have done that. And so never did appreciate, never would make myself spend $1,000 on a suit, but they were, what, $250, $350, $400 per suit? Big deal. Just go do one. And so, but now I've learned that when I do become rich and famous, I'm probably still going to shop at Goodwill. You have to be a little picky, but I'm probably going to do that. Okay? Some people call it cheap. Mom called it frugal. So I'll stick with Mom's word. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Sorry. See, what really happened was Beth and I met this morning, and we came together, but we came in her car, and I left my notes in my car. So anyway, you got to kind of keep me on track, and Bob. Okay? Oh. Okay, what if? What if we can actually sit folks down and facilitate them in what they really need to do? Now, the hard part of that is there's no money for it. You see, the reason that I went through the 3 years with no income, I'm a nonprofit. Bacon Community Ministry is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. Legal, morally, and ethically. Right? But the reason that we couldn't get any money from the government is because we didn't do the classes that did job readiness. There's 1,000 of them right here in the metropolitan area. Take your pick. They're all over the place, all in different areas. They even have a couple up here in the upper echelon. And so they have many down in the hood. So there's all kinds of to go to. They're available by car, they're available by bus, they're available by friend, all of those things. But you see what happens is at the end of that session, you're told, there's a computer, go find a job. Okay? Now that you have those skills, now that you can fill out a resume, we get you a nice suit, get you a haircut, or get a lady a nice dress or a suit outfit. And that's absolutely available every day of the week. Nice clothes, right? But sit down at the computer and find a job. Now, we have to face facts, not fun to talk about, but we have to face facts that sex offenders and or high violent crime offenders are on a search list. Because if I work for Dr. Levins, if he employs me, and you look me up and I'm on that registration list, it's going to show me where I live, it's going to show you where I live, and it's going to show me where I work. Now you own the company. You really want to hire a sex offender and have that plastered all over the place for people to look up and see that that's what you do? On the other hand, who is one of the worst people in the world to sit at home twiddling their thumbs, thinking about nothing but thinking? Who would be one of the worst crimes to do that? Because as people sit around thinking about what they want to think about, many times old habits start coming back. And so the reoffense rate for a sex offender is way high. Right? May God forgive him or her. May they be able to get through Judgment Day. I mean that from my heart. However, That individual is not who I'm the most concerned about. Who am I most concerned about? The kids. What if we can eliminate another victim? Are we kowtowing to ex-offenders? Are we just doing what ex-offenders want to do so that they can manipulate me? Are you kidding me? What? No! No! We're eliminating future victims. Think about that for a minute. So, who else needs education on all this stuff? In my professional opinion, one of the most important things an ex-offender can have when he or she comes home is a job. Because if I've got employment, and let me stop and say that, make this point. It may sound arrogant, but bear with me and please forgive me if it does. I'm not talking about a job. I'm talking about employment. I can get anybody, y'all can have your unemployment rates. I don't buy into it, I don't believe it, because I work in it. I don't believe a word of it. The only time unemployment compensation comes up is when the government says we're going to end it.
No,
Then guess who starts screaming?
I didn't mind.
People that are on it. Now, it is for a lot of people who are in a situation, and there are a lot of people that are in a situation where they need to be on that assistance. But there are also a lot of people on it that are sitting at home and won't go to work. How do I know that? Because I assist ex-offenders with employment. And I've been doing it since '05. I started while I was in prison. Law clerk, people come to me, hey man, you got to get me out of here. You got to get me back in front of the judge for a modification. I got to get out of here. I can't take this. I'm way behind on my child support. And you wouldn't believe of the responsibility thinking that people came to me while we were both in prison and said to me, I didn't have to ask them, they came to me and said it. My child support's getting way behind, my kids aren't getting cared for, and I'm going to go back to prison because I'm way behind on it. The day I walk out, I'm going to get rearrested and reoffended on another C felony, which carries 8 years because I'm over $10,000 behind on my child support. We finally got that law passed, or changed. But it was in effect there were tons of people going back to prison because they were more than $10,000 behind in child support, only to put them further and further behind in child support. Now, am I coddling am I feeling sorry for the guy who's going back to prison? Yeah, a little. Some. Well, actually a lot. Because I know what it's like. Who am I really feeling sorry for? The kids. Kids need the money. Somebody's got to take responsibility and give the money, and somebody's got to take responsibility and get the money so that the children can be provided for what they deserve to be provided for. And so if we don't start looking at things, that kind of thing, if we don't start looking at things and start thinking, we need to change some things. Because tomorrow I get anybody a job they want. I promise you, I promise you, that's a promise. I can get anybody a job that wants me to. Okay? Unfortunately, you're going to be working in a fast food restaurant for $7.25 an hour, maybe $8, and you're going to work anywhere from 20 to 25 hours a week. Now, it doesn't take much of a mathematician to add up how much money that is. And guess what? Put me on that job. The minute I start on that job, I lose all public assistance, which is not a bad thing in theory. In fact, it's a really good thing in theory. It also makes the numbers that we hear go down, and that makes us happy. Because unemployment's down, and public assistance is down. And now you got this poor schmuck working in a fast food restaurant for minimum wage at 20 hours a week that now really can't afford his bills. What's he going to do? He's going to go do another drug deal. What would you do? She's going to walk into Kroger and steal some hamburgers so she can feed her children. What would you do? I'm hollering too loud at everybody. They came in as my friends, didn't they? I need to calm it down a little bit. Sorry. As you can see, I kind of get into this. I don't mean to yell. You're supposed to. That's Beth's fault. Can't be mine. I don't ever do anything wrong, right? So, how about a little education? I'm watching the news one night. A troop's coming back from Iraq. That tells you how long ago it was, right? These folks were in active war. And the media is at the airport, and it's really cool. I've got tears right down my eyes because they're all crying and they're hugging, and it's really cool. I mean, it's really cool, right? There's kind of really neat feeling to watch these soldiers come home and regroup with their families, reconnect with their families. Media reminds us, or in my case, they educated me, that tonight, these soldiers don't get to go home. They only get to visit with their family about an hour, and then they're going to be shipped down to Camp Atterbury, down in Edinburgh, and they're going to go through a 4 to 6 week program called debriefing. And it's extremely necessary. You don't have to carry a rifle anymore. If you see a child on the street, you don't have to assume they're wrapped with a bomb. It's not shoot first, ask questions later. Kill is now, it needs to get off of your mind. The military has spent millions of dollars on this debriefing program, and they're hoping it works. That's a 4 to 6 week program. That makes me a little nervous. In my opinion, it should be a little bit longer. But what really clicked in my head that night was, you know what? War, and I realize all of military, I mean no disrespect, all of military. But war, actual war, is a form of institutionalism. It's a reprogramming. And so, if I'm reprogrammed, if I'm institutionalized or reprogrammed in prison, and I'm told, don't make a decision. You can't make a decision. Don't ask any questions. Just do what you're told. And that's what happens. That's about as rough as it gets. But that does happen. So I didn't get to make decisions. I didn't get to decide when I went to the bathroom or not. I had to ask. So I don't tell you that to feel sorry for me. I say that because all this time I'm getting reprogrammed. That I ask for stuff. I ask for you to give me what I need. I have to ask for my laundry to be done. I have to ask for a meal. I have to ask to go to the bathroom. I have to ask for this. I have to ask for that. And I have to ask for this. So what do you want me to do when I get home? Flip a switch? It's not human nature. That's why the military spent millions of dollars, and I thought, this is cool. I mean, that theory part of it. This is cool. We probably could take this to some of our advantage. Well, come to find out, a friend of mine who was a professor, he's retired now, was a professor at IUPUI in criminal justice, Roger Jajora, worked his whole life in criminal justice and prison reentry, worked more with adolescents than adults. So that was cool. We bounced off of each other a lot. Turns out his next door neighbor was in the military. Guess where he was stationed? Camp Atterbury. Guess what division? Debriefing. So that's cool. So Roger hooks me up with this guy. You should know what I went through to be able to go onto a military base with a criminal history. That was fun. But anyway, get down there. He gave me all this. I've got a whole file cabinet full of stuff, and I've read it, some of it twice. A whole file cabinet full of paperwork from them. They just gave me all this information. I explained to them what I wanted to do. So here's what we're doing. They said, you can do anything you want with this. You can use it, plagiarize it, hand it out. Just don't tell them you're the military. It's the only restriction. Just don't tell them you're the military. And so I thought, you know what? If they're spending millions of dollars on this, and they've done all this research anyway, why do I need to be Einstein and recreate a wheel? This is really cool. And they were willing to share it with me. So I started using that, putting that together. So I approached the Department of Corrections. And I said, I got an idea. Now, normally when Bob Cole says, I got an idea, the smartest thing for you to do is turn around and run. And Charlie Frick could attest to that. So I've done that with him a few times. But you know, it's going to be something pretty crazy and pretty radical, right? So I say to the Department of Corrections, I think we ought to completely revamp the reentry program that men and women go through before they come home. Because I have been an Indianapolis metropolitan prison reentry service provider, if you can say that fast 3 times, you could win a prize, for many years now, a number of years now. I'm part of the problem. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. We service providers wait till folks come home and hit the bricks before we start to do anything. Because it's always been the way we've done it. Right? Now, there is a reentry program now in effect with the Department of Corrections, and I mean no disrespect for the DOC. But y'all have to understand, society's got to understand, the Department of Corrections is not responsible for rehabilitation. That's not their job. They are not responsible for rehabilitation. They never have been, they aren't today, and they're never gonna be. The Department of Corrections' job is for public safety. Let's see, there's two things. Public safety, you all know? Public safety and security. It's for public safety, basically. It's that if I break the law, the Department of Corrections' job is to take me off the streets until I can get my head back straight, in theory, and not break the law anymore. So that's their job, not rehabilitation. That's been a misnomer and misused and abused for decades, or centuries. So, guess what? It needs to be somebody's responsibility. So, this is not a program that Bob Cole created and started and la-di-da, give me a medal. Right? I started reaching out to other service providers that are smarter than me. Domestic violence, job issues, family issues, children issues when I come home. I've met judges, restraining orders, you name it. So I've put together 17 other service providers, and I are partnering together, and we're all going to do our share. Now we're going to go inside the prisons, and we're going to turn the small reentry program. It is the responsibility by policy and procedure that the prisons do a reentry program. It lasts 2 weeks. It's supposed to be your last 2 weeks before you come home. It's Monday through Thursday the first week, Monday through Thursday the second week, and it's anywhere from 2 to 3 hours those days. So if I've been incarcerated for 10, 12, 15, 20 years, and I don't know even how to turn a computer on, I don't know about cell phones, I wouldn't know how to use a cell phone. I've taught many people how to use a cell phone. Right? Because we have to. They don't know. And those that are following the rules don't have one in prison. There are a lot of cell phones in prison. But, you know, that's not supposed to be. So the ones that are following the rules need assistance with that kind of thing. So what if, I mean, how simple is this? What if we just simply go in and start working with folks, say the last 4 months of their incarceration, and stick with them about a year later, anywhere up to a year after they come home? Doesn't it make more sense? With my experience of over the years of help assisting with employment, 40 hours a week plus, real income, maybe some benefits so that their children have health insurance instead of being on Medicaid. It's costing all of us a couple of dollars. So if we can start doing that, then we're going to do it. And they've given me the green light to go ahead and start doing that. So we're going to go do that. Now, what do I ask? Okay. What's my spiel? Yep, this wraps it up in about a minute. First of all, thanks for letting me come and speak and yell at you. And not trip at me because I did. Thanks for the, boy, I've had some real good eye contact and real good, this is cool. Right? Here's all I'm going to ask. I'm hoping that when you leave here this morning, you feel a little warm and fuzzy or something. You feel a little bit something in your tummy to do that. I don't ask people for money. If you want to give it to me, I'll take it. And I am a 501c3, but I'm not asking you for money. That's his job. I'm just kidding. Oh,
I'm sure.
if you feel something in your tummy, though, a little more than the warm and fuzzy thing, come and get involved. You're not going to know. If you're normal, you're not going to know what you're going to think you know what you're doing. You're not when you first get started. Don't expect yourself to know what you're doing when you first get started. This is a tough business, and let me tell you, let me shoot myself in the foot and scare half of you away by saying this is not for the faint of heart. Not at all. If you've ever had a loved one, if you ever know of anyone, if if you've had a son or a daughter, a brother, a sister, you know, who's been involved in the system, maybe they're still in the system, why don't they just go get a job? I would ask you and pray that you stop asking yourself that. Consider getting involved. Find one of us and help us plug you into what your passion is. Because if you want to get involved, it's all fine and dandy what my passion is. But what's much, 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 much more important is what is your passion. And there's plenty of things that you can get involved with. Okay? So, most people that get involved, their plate's already running over anyway. I know mine was, I know Beth's is, I know Doc's is. Okay? So I know Charlie Frick's is. But we do it because we do it. Questions?
I'm gonna have to